Good evening, Don't Unfriend Me Nation, episode 457. This is the Ryan Weaver interview and was amazing. It was so fun to do this. The first 15 minutes or so of the recording got a little scrambled for some reason. I'm not sure why. So we decided to take the live recording and have that conversation that we recorded in the recorded show and then mix them together, which is fine. So the first about 10 minutes is the live show, which gives you some of the same answers and the things that Ryan and I talked about on a one-on-one basis. And then it melds into the actual recorded show. And then part 2 will be all recorded. Part 3 will be a mix of the live and recorded as well. So we can kind of give you all the best of both. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy. Ryan Weaver is an amazing human being. Such a fun interview. Part 1 coming up, and then part 2 will be on Monday. We'll be showing that. So stop on by and take a look. Remember, my name is Matthew Spear. I am the host of Don't Unfriend Me, and it is wonderful to have you here tonight. Enjoy the show with Ryan Weaver, our special guest.
What's up, everybody? It's Ryan Weaver. I am on the Don't Unfriend Me show, otherwise known as The Dumb Show, with host Matt Spear. You guys can find the show at The Dumb Show on social media or thedumbshow.com.
What is going on, everybody? I am so excited. I just got done talking to Ryan for, I don't know, Olivia, what were we talking about? 40, 48, 49 minutes, something like that?
Yeah, I was gone most of the time.
It wasn't long enough. It's amazing. Personal connection changes you. It changes who you are as a person. I think you're going to find that with Ryan tonight, that he will impact your life. He already has in such a short period of time with me. I want to introduce I will say my friend Ryan Weaver is here with all of us tonight, and Ryan is in the top right-hand corner. He gets the position of honor. You can wave down at Leroy and wave over, and we can do some Brady Bunch with Amy. Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan Weaver, welcome to the show, and please tell us a little bit about yourself.
I don't know where to start, but my mom and my dad were in the backseat of a '69 Camaro, and well, we won't go to that point.
No, you should go to that. Hold on. Can you say it slower? Can you say it a little slower? No, go ahead.
I have a song called Like a Love Song that we have not released yet, that we're eventually going to release, but a 69 Camaro is my favorite car, and I say 69 Chevy. In that song, we talk about it. There's always something that has to do with me and my songs. But anyway, I digress. Yeah. I started off as a military intelligence analyst, after I grew up with a large military service family. Grandfather was in World War II. Our dad was a Marine. Brothers were Rangers, and I followed in their footsteps and went in as a military intelligence analyst. And as a E6, which would be a staff sergeant, I went to flight school and was transitioned to become a warrant officer and a Blackhawk aviator. And that's kind of how I got into country music after some stuff happened along the way.
What made you want to go into military intelligence, Ryan?
It was straight up because I wasn't as hardcore as both of my brothers. They were both, my oldest brother, Steve, he was already a warrant officer at the time, but he was 2nd to 75th in the Ranger Regiment for 2nd to 75th. And my brother Aaron was in the 3rd to 75th and as a Ranger. And I just wasn't as hardcore as they were and chose a different route. I decided to, maybe I thought I was one up in my brothers. I don't know, because I went military intelligence. I think it was because of the story that my dad told when the recruiter came back and Aaron had chosen Airborne Rangers and getting into the Ranger Regiment when he scored a 99 on the ASVAB and could have chosen any job he wanted. And
Ranger.
And the recruiter came
he
back
went with a 50. He went with a 51 score Ranger. I mean, that's 99. The Navy probably scratched on his dorm like, hey, you want to go nuke?
Right.
Yeah. We both were getting that from our ASVABs that we took in 11th grade. But all that aside, he Steve came back from the recruiters, and the recruiter said to my dad that he joined the Ranger Regiment so it could be a Rangers because he wanted to be harder. My dad was a Marine. And my dad said, well, out of spite, you've made it a whole lot harder on yourself than it would have ever been on me, because he was a Marine reservist. But and then Aaron wanted to follow in Steve's footsteps, and admirably so. The two greatest men that I've ever known in my life were my dad and my brother Steve. Aaron's the third greatest man I've ever known in my life, but Aaron followed in Steve's footsteps, and this was before I joined the military. So being a military service member, or excuse me, going in as a military service member behind them, I wanted to one up them and do something smarter, because I heard my dad's stories about how dumb he thought Aaron and Steve were for going to Ranger Regiment. But
Right,
they were all
right.
poking fun at each other, that kind of thing. They're poking fun at each other. But for me, I just wasn't as hardcore as they were. Aaron was a stud. I mean, he was a stud in every sport that he ever did. He had a different kind of mentality than I had. I was the more emotional kid growing up. But initially, I was going to go 2 years into the military, and then of course you get down to MEPS and they show you all the screens, and I was finding all these shit jobs to do in the military that I wasn't interested in, and intelligence analyst came up, and I'm like, ooh, let me check that out.
Fun.
It turned into a 6-year commitment, top secret clearance, which they were telling me of all the great things that a top secret clearance could do for you after you got out of the military, which I never took advantage of. But yeah, I mean, so that's the route that I took. I may have taken a different route on it, but I still used Aaron, and Aaron is my standard of performance. His promotion rate, all the things that he had happened to him in the Ranger Regiment were still my standard performance.
Right.
And even as a military intelligence analyst, I was given the option of potentially going to Ranger School. And by the time that I got to that point, there were 2 things that I loved to do: eat and sleep. And you didn't get to do either one of them in Ranger School.
Yeah.
So I decided against going to Ranger School when I walked over a field desk on CQ duty at night, when trying to stay awake at 2:00 in the morning, and walked over the field desk and crushed the phone and said, you know what? I think I'm going to pass on the Ranger School.
All right. So you went to Intel, then you became a chopper pilot. What was it that made you say, all right, I want to fly choppers? Which, in my opinion, if I'm going to, be an aviator, my dad always said, he's like, choppers are the squirreliest damn things in the world. And he was a Cessna pilot, and they can just decide that they don't want to fly anymore. And there's really not much you can do, because it's not like a plane where you have a glide slope. It's a fucking chopper. It's a brick with a propeller. If I'm understating this, then you can just say, Matt, you're full of it. None of this is true, but educate me. What made you want to do this?
Well, first and foremost, they teach us the entire time during flight school how to crash a helicopter and survive it. It's not, I mean, that's really what it boils down to. Learning emergency procedures and limitations of a helicopter is required, word for word memorization, rote memorization, whatever it may be, because they're constantly teaching how to crash it and how to crash it safely. Helicopters aren't meant to fly. They say that you could teach a monkey to fly a helicopter, and it's not the flying part that is the hard part. It's the taking off and landing, because it's
Right.
never the flying part that kills you. It's the sudden stop at the bottom. But I followed in my brother's footsteps. My oldest brother, Steve, he went out. He was in the Ranger Regiment, got out, went to school, then went back in, flew Cobras, then OH-58s, then the OH-58 Delta Kiowas. And then Aaron followed in his footsteps. He was in the 3rd to 75th in the ambush in Mogadishu that Blackhawk Down was made after. He was one of the Rangers on the ground. He's actually interviewed in the History Channel interviews of the making of Blackhawk Down, if you want to hear him speak. First time I heard him speak after he was killed in action was when I played that for my candidates. And there's a Kiowa right there. A lot of folks don't know what a Kiowa is. It's interesting, but yeah, both my brothers flew that, and I did not. I went a different route, but so I followed in their footsteps, and I was a recruiter, which sucked ass.
Forgot
for
to
the
ask
Army.
you about that.
I was a Sunday night, and I was flooring a kid to go to MEPS the next morning to join the military, on a Sunday night. And Aaron called me. He was at flight school and said they changed the vision standards, because I didn't think I had 20/20 vision. They changed the vision standards to 20/50 correctable to 20/20, and he said, you ought to think about putting your packet in. And I was going through some stuff personally, and with my ex-wife now, but went home and said, I'm thinking about putting my packet in, because I had submitted it as an E4. That's something up with my pupil dilation, not to get off on a tangent here and go forever. But anyway, got selected for flight school, or on my first round on the next board, and was gone 3 months after that and attended flight school down at Fort Rucker. So, it was an outstanding experience to be able to say that I did it. Can't say that I was as passionate about it as both my brothers, because Steve, my oldest brother, is still flying for a civilian company right now. And once Aaron died in Iraq in 2004, my dream and my desire to fly helicopters after that ended. 100%
Right.
ended.
Did you get out shortly after that, or was it before that?
Aaron died in 2004, and I retired in 2012. I went
Okay.
back from Germany. I was non-deployable because of the Sole Survivor Act. It became a TAC officer at Warrant Officer Candidate School and an academic instructor. That was my flight school graduation right there. I graduated top of my class in both of them.
Wow.
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 Man, I didn't expect that.
No,
I cry
brother,
all the
don't.
time. Don't worry.
This is me. This is me. Everybody that's watching, this is me. You're not getting anybody different than the guy that stands on stage and gets to live the dream. This is me.
I think that's why you're so loved, though. You're so honest and raw, and it comes through in everything that I've seen from you. It's really remarkable.
I would absolutely
Thank you.
agree with that. I would say that something that really shines through when you're standing in front of crowds like that is the level of authenticity that I got, even from the videos that I've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're talking to Ryan Weaver. Ryan Weaver is, we're going in through, his military history here. Blackhawk pilot. We'll move into the country music, which I'm really interested in because big country music fan, and obviously I have a fondness for the music itself. I think the biggest thing when I heard your story, Ryan, in regards to your service was, the loss of your brother. And I've seen interviews and I've seen the emotion and how palpable that is till the day. And that was back in 2004, right?
Yes, my brother and I were deployed to Iraq together. I was with the 1st Armored Division. He's with the 82nd Airborne, and both of us flying. He was flying Kiowas. I was flying Blackhawks in Iraq, and he was a cancer survivor, was non-deployable. He got a waiver to be deployed from his division commander, but he had to get bi-monthly blood screenings for his cancer. And he was a passenger in a medevac helicopter on the way to Baghdad Hospital when it was shot down on January 8th in 2004, and everyone on board was killed in action. And then in 2013, my brother-in-law, Randy Billings, was piloting a Blackhawk in Afghanistan on December 17th, and he was an IED blew off the tail boom of his aircraft. And fortunately, one person was ejected from the back of the helicopter and survived, but the rest of the crew and folks that were passengers were rolled down 500 feet of mountainside and were all killed in action as well. So we became a 2-time Gold Star family.
Yeah. Spent a lot of time with Gold Star parents, and the one consistent thing is I can never quite understand how the perseverance and the passion for life is with every single Gold Star family that I've ever met. And it's got to be overwhelming. It's got to be difficult, but and we're talking hundreds of Gold Star families I've worked with. Every single one of them, just some of the strongest, most resilient people I've ever met. How do you draw on that? So you transition out of the military, you've got to come to civilian life. I'm assuming that with the loss of your brother, you had to, you saw this with your brothers in arms, but when it's your own blood, it's got to be different. How did that help you kind of transition, realize, okay, this is my focus, this is what I want to do, and I could have been the one who didn't make it. I'm assuming those thoughts went through your head, or maybe they didn't. Maybe you can kind of fill the gaps for me on that.
Oh, there's massive survivor's guilt. My brother was an all-American superhero. It was interesting hearing the stories of those who picked him up off the battlefield and those who discovered him on the battlefield. I've spoken to the medic. I've spoken to the medic that recovered him, that was first on site. I've spoken to the quick reaction force that had to secure the downed aircraft crash site. And, the medic himself, he had been on so many different missions where he picked up folks off the battlefield, whether alive or not. And he said when he found Aaron, it was the first time that he questioned his mortality, because Aaron was a superhero. He was this god that went through Somalia, the ambush in Mogadishu, the only non-commissioned officer that didn't get shot in that whole thing. And, being a cancer survivor that darn near killed him, and getting that waiver to be deployed because he didn't want to be left behind or be, when his unit was in combat or his little brother was in combat. And then happening to him, obviously, it was a big eye opener for a lot of folks in that unit. I mean, Kimberly Hampton, female cavalry captain, was killed on January 2nd, right before Aaron. And the last time I saw her alive was on January 4th at the memorial service for her. And it was just it was a huge crushing blow to me, because I followed in his footsteps my entire life, essentially. He got all the hot girls and I got the leftovers in school. And he went in the military, and I didn't go Ranger. Aaron followed in Steve's footsteps a little bit closer than I did. He went Ranger. I went military intelligence. I wasn't as hardcore as Aaron was. And, following him to be an aviator, I was told, I haven't been able to verify, but I was told when I graduated flight school that we were the first 3 brothers to fly as warrant officers in the history of Army aviation.
No
at the
way.
same time.
You would assume, right? I mean, that's, you put those
I
odds
don't know
together.
of 3 brothers that were warrant officers. I know that there were a combination of different kinds of officers that flew.
Sure.
With aviators
Of course they were,
in the military at the same time, but 3 warrant officers to fly. Aaron and Steve pinned my wings on for my flight school graduation. I was fortunate that I graduated top of my class in flight school and was able to have my wings pinned on by myself. My brothers came up to pin my wings on, and it was incredible to follow in their footsteps. But losing Aaron, aviation has an inherent danger. I mean, crashing helicopters are being shot down in combat, and there were a lot of them being shot down in Iraq at the time.
Right.
It has that inherent danger, but it still doesn't prepare you. Regardless, the reality of losing, your closest sibling is a year and 9 months older than me, and losing him the way that he was, I think more than ever, he was probably pissed off about being in the back of the aircraft and being shot down and not being in the front of the aircraft. And as hardcore as he was, he would have wanted gone out on his own terms in that circumstance. But he went out going to a cancer screening, and not to degrade his sacrifice by any means. But I know the way he was. I know the kind of person that he was and the kind of soldier that he was. And he wanted to be on the front lines, and he wanted to be up there, support his brothers and sisters in arms always. And in that regard, he came home in a flag covered casket as a passenger in a medevac helicopter, Blackhawk. So, but the one thing that I think that was cool, when I saw him on January 4th, the last time, he sat in the front of my helicopter, or my Blackhawk, when I flew into Captain Hampton's memorial service, and he had this look on his eyes, and he said, "There are all these buttons and switches in here," and because they have the glass cockpit at the time, and I had the old Alpha Charlie model, Blackhawk, and he, it was cool to see that respect from him, that his little brother was flying Blackhawks, and he looked at the cockpit and it looked confusing to him, although it was probably extremely simple in comparison to what he had in a Kiowa cockpit. But it was just, it was tough. It sucked.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
Of course.
It was 2 years of my life that would never want to go back to again. Problem is, I go back to it in my sleep. I go back to it every single day that I wake up, and being here and he's not. I'm going to end up getting emotional talking about this, because I can't. When I do my motivational speaking, I cry every single time because I tell Aaron's story.
I recognize
and I tell Brandon's
that.
story.
Yeah, you do your Dumb Nation. I hope you enjoyed the show. That was part 1 of the Ryan Weaver interview. Hung it on a question there, and I'll make sure to add it in the second episode. That will be dropping on Monday, and then I believe Wednesday will be part 3. Let me know what you think in the comments. Please do me a favor and support Ryan. All the causes that he supports, you can find it ryanweaver.net, or find him at Ryan Weaver Country. We will go out with the Veteran Crisis Hotline like we always do. We won't change that up. And I'll see you on Monday with a new episode. And live tonight for Red Friday, we will be on at 8 o'clock. See you soon.
Be honest with the Cast a SEAL team, and we have an important message for returning vets. We want you to know if you're struggling to cope, there's help, and it's just a phone call away.
The Veterans Crisis Line is staffed with experienced professionals who know your struggles.
There's no greater sacrifice in service to our country. We're able to enjoy our freedoms because of it.
Your service is important. You are important.
For vets and their families, the Veterans Crisis Line is here to help 24 hours a day. Please call